Okay, so looking back at how we got started on the longer, this was a 2-period ratio lesson with a project component, and we got them tuned in by looking at their surroundings. And I thought you picked a really good starting point, just something they can see really clearly. I thought it was great that you have been tracking with Yamato for what things are accessible, what sentence patterns as an EAL student, and feeling like he's part of the larger group. I feel like you're really in tune to like making sure he's engaged, and so asking him the question about gathering that data, how many students had a certain color shirt, and making sure you were calling on a variety of students. And then from there, gradually building the depth of knowledge and how we had talked about ratios relate to each other. Because I think right from the start we had a ratio that could be simplified.
Yeah.
And
I think it was 5:15. Is it the one that you were saying?
Yeah, that was, we couldn't have planned better for that. It was nice numbers to work with to reinforce that concept that ratio behaves with another ratio like fractions. And then from there, you made sure after they were beginning to combine the shades of clay to make the palette of different colors. You made sure to really circulate in a balanced way and answer specific questions. At times I find that they're leaving their table to come approach me because I get stuck at one table, but I find that you're really, like, you know where you can leave it with one group, and then you check in on everybody regularly, which is really good.
What do you think about my language when I was doing the introduction, or when I go through the content of racial?
I thought that at one point it could have been a little bit more clear. I think you said, it was almost like the Japanese way. It wasn't about the mathematical grammar, but you said, who is black or something? Who is black today? And some of them were like,
Yeah. I kind of think about it too, and then I was like, okay. When I was, even before I watched the whole video, during the class, I was like, okay, I need to add some words onto it.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, before I had content that I'd taught for a successive year, I had to practice explicitly, like what sentences were going to come out of my mouth. Because otherwise, I mean, you want that to be second nature when you're in front of the kids, like the words are kind of falling out pretty much because you've practiced saying it. That's not a really good example, but anytime you feel like, oh, how do I put this sentence together? For me, a lot of the times it's the mathematical grammar. Like we talked about the grammar of the ratio. Today they really, really practiced that.
Yes.
And yeah, I find teachers, we've got to keep up with our practice too.
And maybe how do you find the kids getting the activity, the clay activity? How are they taking this? Do you think it's helpful? How are they, I would say, how are they absorbing or learning when we're doing the clay activity?
They seem to understand the directions pretty well and the hands-on nature of it. They're seeing how the color is changing with each ratio becoming greater with a certain color. Did you find that some were just doing it without really engaging with the concept, or what were your observations?
No, when I was doing it, then I was thinking, I thought like, oh yeah, the clay activity is really good. Then later on, when we add on the tie-dye shirt, then I was wondering if it was better to have either one instead of both on the same day. There was some thoughts, because then there was a point where we were rushing. Some groups say, okay, so you only have got this time to finish, and then you need to move on, and we really need to move on, and everyone needs to move on together. That's when I felt like, okay, maybe we could have done like one thing and have it done really well and focus before then. Okay, then we move on to the next one. Yeah,
I agree. We probably, now you bring that up, it makes me think that we probably could have connected the tie-dye t-shirt concept a little bit more meaningfully to the clay. Because if we asked some kids, they may have thought that it was just two different things. Okay, we're finished with the clay now the t-shirts, and maybe for the t-shirts they wouldn't have connected the ratio concept at all. I think the fact that we had the follow-up, the posters where they looked at a picture of a tie-dye t-shirt and applied the concept of the ratio of paint, what makes purple. Otherwise, it would have been really disconnected. I agree.
Yeah. But I feel that like with you around during the class, you actually helped me to cover lots of the loopholes and the blind spots of mine, especially for language, like how you step into tell Noah about, and because that alerts me and say, oh Noah, do you need help to finish the full sentence? Yeah, and then at that point in time it spots me as well. I was like, oh yes, my language. Yeah, it was a good reminder. I really appreciate it. And then besides that, about the connecting both activity, the clay activity and the tie-dye shirt, the connect, I would say the relationship is really weak, in such a sense that some students didn't even see there was a relationship. And you actually came out with the tie-dye poster shirt. Whoa, that was amazing. I was like, oh, that was an excellent activity to like tell them, say, this is why we're doing tie-dye. It's about ratio. It's not art class. Yeah.
So. They're really, wow, now that you mention it, at first when you asked, I wouldn't have thought that the clay activity, I felt like they were all pretty engaged, but the connection was what was missing. Because some of the kids said about the picture of the tie-dye shirt, it's just two colors. It's just blue and orange. And they didn't connect at all, like the shades and the ratio of the,
So that poster that the next day you came out with, I was like, wow, this is amazing, because it really connects and it makes them think about the colors, and then it makes them think about, okay, then about ratio, about colors, about everything that we have done on that day for the tie-dye shirt and the clay activity. Yeah. So, wow.
It's too bad their t-shirts turned out so faded.
But I guess the kids are really excited with the tie-dye shirt, so
yeah. We should do another round with actual cotton shirts.
Oh, that would be cool.
Okay, when we think about the lesson plans in hindsight, and definitely, especially after seeing the video, realizing that it's actually 2 full lesson plans crammed into one lesson's amount of time, we should think about how we could separate out the major stages of a lesson, introducing it, helping the kids tune in, teaching the necessary content and skills, and then lots of guided practice. That can all happen with the clay, like combining the colors of clay. And maybe the resource that we found online where it's a simple demonstration in front of just the cups of color with food coloring. We could have helped them tune in with a visual demonstration, and then what they do on their own.
Yeah.
There's a guided practice part to it, and then we follow up with independent practice where they show how well they can apply those concepts.
Yeah.
Maybe something like coming up with a word problem, a situation problem where they would need to have a variety of ratios. How well could they design a situation where you can order a certain amount of, I don't know, you're custom ordering coffee and you can put a certain amount of milk in the ratio or something like that.
Yeah. True.
And then I think that might have been a good time to assign as enrichment, reteaching and enrichment, the homework. Yeah, because we could have incorporated a little bit more of our individual and class work as we're doing these activities. Then next activity that stands alone is the tie-dye t-shirts, and what parts of the practice that they do need to complete from the resource, what parts connect directly to the concepts in tie-dyeing.
Okay. I guess that will actually give us a good connection then. Yeah. Instead of just stepping in and say, okay, so this, okay, now we're finished this. So, yeah.
This is the first time we've started out at the beginning of a chapter, and the first time I've done ratio where we did something completely hands-on like this at the start. But yeah, in hindsight, laying it out so everything is connected in terms of concept. So when is the focus going to be equivalent ratios, and when is the focus going to be, obviously the first activity needs to really focus on the basic concept of a ratio and what is it representing.
Okay. Yeah. I guess then the clear, like what you say, the clear objective of like this activity is, okay, we need to have them know this message needs to be part of this goal. They need to learn this. They need to being able to maybe just say it out loud or write it down, in their like to show what they know. Okay.
And that reminds me, one more thing that I try to do, but I generally will just default to verbal answers. If there's something where there's a choice of responses, and for math it's easier because sometimes it's, really often it's numbers, dry erase boards or number cards or something like that. So when you do have those tuning in questions where it's some repetition and they're getting used to the concept, if the answers are numbers, maybe they can just hold up number cards. Or have you seen the QR code app where it's a multiple choice response, and then the angle that they hold the QR code?
Oh, I've got 4 different choices?
Yeah. There's a star or something, and if the star is up, it reads it as a certain answer, like A, and if it's to the right, it reads it as B. So you can ask a question, give the choices, show your answers, ready, go, and then you just scan, and it gives you data right away, like this many out of 18 had the correct response. And it's also a little bit tricky to see who had. Well, you could figure it out, but you don't have to take that time. You can just say, okay, we were nearly there on that one. Let's try a couple more rounds of practice till we get 100%. And then it's motivation for them. Like, come on, guys. They really jump on then. But too often, I just go the short route of, okay, you give the answer this time. You give the answer. Like, there's lots of options for responses that are quicker.
But I think if you use the QR code, everyone's gonna be so fun. They will be like, okay, sit in a circle. Here's the question. Then they will scan their QR code.
Yeah, and some kind of surface level differentiation, like maybe some of the ones who have got it and they're tracking, they're answering the right time every time. They can think of a question up front and then scan, and then they'll want to. So.
Wow.
But then with our grade 5s, they'll fight over it.
Yes. Yes. Oh, okay.
Hey.
Good thought.